when it gets to can they fund these teams, will they fund these teams? There's obviously great worry that they will not, and they will start cutting teams. I don't know. Schools have tried to cut teams, and it's usually pretty hard to do. Occasionally it succeeds, but there's a lot of blowback. I think Michigan State got rid of a swim team. Stanford tried to eliminate some teams, and it didn't.
Iowa eliminated some and then had to bring back, like they brought back women's swimming because they were getting sued.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stanford, I remember it was like 11 teams.
Yes.
Well, Stanford
got the most.
Back,
they got like 38 and they cut to 27, I think. So.
Yeah. And they brought back them all, I believe.
Brought them all back.
Yeah, mainly over it was a lawsuit from wrestlers, Stanford wrestlers. They were really active there and brought it back. When all that happened a couple of years ago, I remember writing a story about is the future of Olympic sports, and I remember talking about it on the pod, is the future of Olympic sports funded in some other way, right? By alums or endowments, all that stuff. And maybe I don't see, Dan, what you're talking about, eliminating sports, this leading to that. Yeah, I do see that as a possibility, but more so, I see the de-investing, in sports more so. Maybe, and we talked about that on the pod Friday, is the tiering of sports. Some ADs have been even public about it now, and they're having conversations behind closed doors with their coaches about how their sports are going to be tiered now. And if you're in the bottom tier, so the Olympic sports that probably don't get a lot of eyeballs, don't get ticket sales at all, you're going to be they're going to de-invest you, especially if you're a men's sport, because of Title IX stuff and the balance of Title IX. If you're a men's sport that doesn't generate a lot of ticket sales, you're probably going to be de-invested. Your scholarships are probably going to be reduced. Your staffing might be reduced. Salaries, I would guess, are eventually going to be reduced. And they're going to work all that up toward the top tier. They're going to move all that money probably to the top tier. So it'd be basically, like we had said Friday, a veritable club kind of sport. I'd expect more of that.
I think if you could wave a magic wand, because we talked about this with conference realignment, like some of these sports don't need to be played under the parameters of a football league that is designed to create billions of dollars. And I may be wrong here. I'm taking, because someone's going to tell me I got the rankings all wrong, but I'm guessing the Big Ten is not fantastic at tennis or something, right? And does it make sense to have a tennis league where you're flying to LA and these kids are flying all over the country and we got to go play Oregon, we got to go to New Jersey? Would you not be better having a tennis team that plays a regional grouping the way we've had it in lacrosse and hockey at times, and like beach volleyball, and some of the West Coast teams have their own league? Like, hey, it's okay to play just this local team. Like, Boston College hockey should be playing in Hockey East where it does. It's okay that Northeastern doesn't have a team, or they go play Maine, or they play, like, that makes sense for hockey. And that would make sense because, certainly couldn't have an ACC team, but even if you did, like, why would you do that? Everything's easier if it's a little more regionalized. And if they eventually get to this system where a lot of schools in a region tier down at stuff that, hey, we're not that great at anyway, maybe that club level actually works better.
Yeah, first of all, Ohio State, Illinois, and Michigan have actually been quite good at tennis here.
Okay,
and there.
Here you go.
So,
yeah. What do I know? I was going straight by weather. I don't know. If I was a tennis player, I'd be at Texas or USC.
USC, baby. UCLA.
Yeah, Miami. I don't know. So
right. But I think your point's well taken, that I think that should be an inevitable alternative here. And I don't fully get what some of the holdback is to that. That it would make so much more sense to geographically group those sports from a operating standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, travel, all that stuff. And, in some of the sports, even with the realignment, there's not going to be a lot, like, you're not going to play, I would bet in tennis, you're not going to be crisscrossing the country playing like 8 different matches. You may play one. You may go on one trip and play 2 or 3 teams at one time, and then they come to you. Some other. But I think there's plenty of ways around making this as difficult as it is right now. The idea of no, we've got to have all these sports under this one conference umbrella, I think is going to run into a reality of like, now we got to spin some more of this off.
I don't think they're going to cut, and I don't think they're going to de-emphasize.
To your point, I will say, Dan, like cutting sports is it's a nightmare for an AD because you're the bad guy and you have to answer to a wildly unhappy bunch of athletes, parents, and alums who played those sports. And you're just asking, and lawsuits too, you're just asking for a PR hit of epic proportion. So as one AD said to me, like, somebody's going to have to go first, and nobody wants to be that AD that steps up and says, you know what, we're cutting 5 sports.
Yeah, it'd be difficult. So there's a lot of attention on this because it is the Olympics, that college athletics and USOC has got its own lobbying group on this. I talked to them the other day, and they said they've been lobbying Congress, and they're going to keep an eye on the idea that any sport gets cut. And I think I sort of would ask Pat is, I think we've discussed some of this before, but like, should it be college sports' job to power Team USA? Like, it's sort of like that role has happened somewhat organically, because there's been so much money come in through football and basketball that schools created a lot of these sports or had all these sports and have funded it to the level where the training, the coaching is so high. And then we're really good at a whole bunch of sports, and we win lots of gold medals. And for 2 weeks, every 4 years, everyone's kind of excited about it. But that is money earned by football players generally. I am not someone who comes on here and says, oh, football players are exploited or football players should have been exploited. They've gotten a good deal. It's a voluntary sport to play. They're going to get a really good deal going forward. But at the end of the day, it's still money they're earning to a degree that is, at least maybe not all of it, but disproportionately taken off of them, when maybe it should be, as Ross said, endowments or alums or government, or it's not the colleges of France that put together their swim teams, right? They have whatever system,
Right. Remember the Congressional Bill last year that was introduced, and it basically had the government subsidizing Olympic sports through the schools, which is an interesting bill. It basically would provide for the school, provide funds through the government for the schools to continue to operate. I don't, it didn't go anywhere. And maybe it will at some point, but it was connected to the Department of Defense. You guys remember that?
Yeah, well, I do remember the Defense Department getting on it.
Yeah.
Of course.
It was interesting because it tied into athletes when they graduate, right? Going to work for the Department of Defense. But
4 F-16s and a field hockey team, please.